All right, gang. Welcome to the first episode of the reimagined, remade, amazing GareTheBear Show podcast. We are back in action, living it up. It's been a minute since I've recorded a podcast. I can pull up the exact date. But the point is, we're here on YouTube now. We're doing it live, and it's going to be awesome. So, first off, just want to quickly address, I haven't done the podcast thing in a minute, so if it's kind of rough, bear with me. But I do have sort of an outline for the episode today. That way it doesn't go all over the place. Kind of stays honed in and on task. But let's see. The last episode of the podcast that was on Spotify was, I believe, November of 2022. Yeah, November 2nd. So safe to say it's been a solid hunk of time before I made the last one. But that's okay. That's totally okay. Anywho, so the goal, well, first of all, let me just kind of tell you when I started, how the whole podcast thing came to be. Back in, I believe it was June of 2021. Again, I can totally go back and look for it. But back in, the 7th month, so that'd be July. Yeah, July of 2021. I started the podcast. Was it July? Sorry, I didn't scroll far enough. Yeah, no, it was July 1st of 2021. And I learned about Anchor, Anchor by Spotify. So that's pretty much just their free service. You can start a podcast, just start one. Literally, you can just start a podcast. It's exactly like making YouTube videos. You can just do it for free, 100%. And they have a whole setup. Their whole website's really cool. You can edit your own podcast. You can record it from their site. So I decided to do that. And little did I know when I was starting out, you can actually get paid right when you start. So that was really cool. So I did that, started that out back in almost 2 years ago now, which is kind of crazy. So that was the start of this, and I did a whole bunch of episodes until November of 2022. Then I just kind of stopped because I never really prioritized the podcast as well as I would have liked to, but I definitely am going to try my darndest to keep it consistent this time, make it a schedule, put it in to my already current flow of content. That's pretty much the gist of the whole podcast thing, where it started, that whole thing. And then also, since it's coming on YouTube, I want to talk about the YouTube a little bit, for those of you that are new and that are tuning in. The YouTube channel started back in 2019, did a whole bunch of stuff, and actually with the podcast, I posted the podcast on YouTube a couple times, but that was pre-YouTube podcast, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But I posted them as regular videos, and it didn't really do as well, and it felt out of place because I was doing predominantly vlogs on the channel, and so sticking a podcast in there once a week didn't really fit. But now, what the plan is, just a few days ago, actually, YouTube officially released the podcast feature. So what that would be is essentially a third type of content. So you have your regular videos, you have your short videos, and then you have your podcasts. And your podcasts are going to be completely separate, completely unique form of content on the channel. So, you have your video analytics, you have your shorts analytics, and you have your podcast analytics completely separate from everything else. So that makes it really easy to make a podcast on your YouTube channel, but as well keep it separate from everything else. So also, one of the main goals for the podcast here, we're going to have, it's always cool to have a guest on the show, but this is the way I'm doing it is I'm going to be live streaming it, and then the replay itself will be the thing. So as you guys can see, I have chat up on the screen. So Chloe and Nikki, hello, welcome guys, welcome gang. But the guest is going to be the chat. So every time we stream, unless I have an actual guest on, the guest per se will be you guys, the chat. So I'm going to have a subject. How this is going to roll is I'm going to have sort of a discussion topic that we start off with. I'm going to talk about it, and then you guys can chime in, and we'll kind of sort of go back and forth about whatever it is we talk about. So in my head, and in theory, it should be pretty awesome, and I'm excited for it. But yeah, that's sort of the deal. And my goal, one of the goals for this I say it's a new show, but this has existed for a while. I just haven't done it in 5 months, and it's just been really inconsistent. So it feels new. It's going to be a new season. But the goals, I have a bunch of ideas written down in my little book. If you've seen the recent vlogs, I've been obsessed with this little notebook that I've been writing in. But some of the goals for the new show are going to be predominantly have something always. Don't just ramble. Like I get in the habit of rambling. Even when I have something to talk about, I get in the habit of rambling on. And that's not as, to me, I mean, it seems as though it's not as super duper entertaining if you're just rambling, but I want to have specific ideas in mind for what the podcast is generally about. Obviously, if we get to going back and forth with me in the chat and you guys and everything, it's gonna tail off in other directions at some points. So that's not gonna be a huge deal. I just want it to stay focused a lot. I don't know. I want it to try its best, at least for me. I want to do my best to try and stay focused for you guys. That way it doesn't sound, and when you're listening to it, when you're either here live or listening to it after it's been published, but I want it to feel not like it's all over the place, but more sort of on track and sort of tame, if anything. And that really too just makes for a better podcasting experience for me, because I have a set goal. I could talk for hours, but when I have a set goal in mind and something to kind of talk about in a subject specific, then it won't take it wouldn't end up being 4 hours long. It'd be an hour or whatever. But either way, Nene, welcome. What's good? So Chloe, Nikki, and Nene, glad you're here. You guys are the guests so far. So if ever you have any questions, this first one is more of a introductory episode, more of a Q&A type of situation. If you want to send some questions, by all means, I'd love to answer them for you. But for the rest, from my end, I have a couple more things. I do have some plans. This is going to be, so for you guys, I'm going to run down sort of the content map or the intention. So I'm obviously doing the live stream right now. We're live on YouTube. What's up, YouTube? We're live, gang. But the plan is, because on YouTube, when you do a live stream, if you guys didn't know, when you do a live stream, after the live stream is over, you have the option to publish it as a video to have the whole live stream replay public on YouTube, or you can make it private, or you can unlist it. Either way, I always have just been under the impression, leave it public, because you never know who wants to watch it afterwards and who might have missed it or whatever. But I'm going to keep it public. That way I can put it in the podcast playlist, which is one of YouTube's new things. That way on YouTube podcasts or on YouTube music or whatever, it can be promoted as a podcast. So with that, I'm going to go on a little side note here. The way the podcasts on YouTube work is you post your video or your live stream or whatever it is. You could put it in the playlist, which would be, you can create a podcast, which is essentially a playlist of videos. So the podcast itself, the show, is the playlist, and then all your videos that you put in it are the episodes. So then that playlist, since it's listed as a podcast, YouTube will then take that playlist and promote your episodes or the playlist as a whole. I'm not certain on that, but I assume it would be both, that it would promote your playlist as a whole and your episodes. But then it would take that and promote it on YouTube under the podcast section. It would post it there, and also it would post it on YouTube Music. It would spread it out on YouTube Music. And then Chloe says, so once you publish it on YouTube, are you going to edit it for Anchor? Yeah, I did. So I did say that during this week's vlog, but I'll reiterate for these people that haven't seen it. So essentially, I'll have the stream published on YouTube after the stream ends, and then immediately after the stream ends, I'm currently recording what I'm live streaming right now, so I have all this footage afterwards. So after the stream is over, I will strip the audio, because I'm not going to do video podcasts, because it's just a little bit. The video podcast is here on YouTube. I don't want to put it on Spotify for a particular reason, and I'll get to that. But I'm going to take the MP3 file, the audio file from this stream, and then I'm going to take it to Anchor, or what they are now referred to as Spotify for podcasters. I'm going to take it there. First I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm going to add an intro, like a proper intro, add a proper outro, that kind of stuff. But I'm going to cut it in half, do a little bit of editing, not much, because obviously I want to be as true to this as possible. But I'm going to put it on Spotify. I have an ad read for Anchor in my Spotify thing, so I can put that in there, and that way I'll be able to get money from this on the Spotify for Podcasters deal. So I'll put the audio there. So I'll have the stream on YouTube, and then I'll have once the stream is over, the stream's happening now. Once the stream's over, I'll have the stream replay on YouTube, which will be promoted as a podcast, as we just discussed. And then it'll be on Spotify and wherever else you get your podcast, or wherever else Anchor promotes it to. I don't know where they put it. I think I can send it to more different places, but I just haven't done that. But it'll be on Spotify with the ad read and the proper intro, so if anybody wants to watch or listen to it on Spotify, it'll sound a little different because it'll have the intro on it and the outro, and then it'll have the ad read, but it's all the same content, the same guts. Nene says, your content quality is nice AF. You deserve more views. Thanks so much, dude. I appreciate that. And then Brent, what's up, man? Brent is excited for the podcast coming back. I'm excited too. For some reason, I'm a little nervous. I don't know why. I just haven't done a podcast in a while. But either way, it'll all come back to me. Again, I haven't done a podcast in I don't know how long, so I just, it do be that way. But once the podcast is published on YouTube, and once the podcast is on Spotify, what I'll do is I will take the video footage from this stream that I'm recording right now. I will take it, and I will take some significant moments. So if I can find any, maybe if this episode sucks and there's no significant moments, then I won't cut any out. But the intention is to take this footage and then cut out some significant segments, less than 60 seconds. I think you know where I'm going with this. And I'm going to use it for Shorts, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm going to use it as short form content as well to promote the podcast, to promote the channel, and just to give people on these other platforms a unique experience. Melodious Blue says, just dropped in, but I wanted to ask you if you had any clear purpose for your podcast, or if it was just an anything podcast. I would say for right this minute, it's anything podcast. I actually updated the description of the podcast. You can't see it on actual YouTube because doesn't have any videos in it yet. But the description, I describe it as a daily vlog for podcast, but that's not really. I don't know. It's gonna evolve, I think, but it's gonna be a lot of talking about content, like the things I'm into, right? The content. I have a whole bunch of ideas, right? Stories, content creation, sort of my experiences just in general. Lots of right now I have just a bunch of raw ideas, but it all generally circulates around. It's like my actual YouTube videos, but in podcast form, and I can further elaborate on some of the points, because I would talk all day. Again, in the vlog, I would go on and on and on, but the vlogs would be an hour and a half long, and they would be boring. So I wanted to take some of the ideas I have down. I want to just take some points that I make in my vlogs and then further elaborate with much more detail and go further in depth here on the podcast. Nikki says, I would love to stick around, but I'm not feeling my best. I'm going to go for a little bit. All right, hey, you're good. Take care of yourself. Hope you feel better. You drink some water. Make sure you're drinking all the water. That's just for everybody. Nene says he's going to hop off. Well, thanks for hanging out, dude. I appreciate it. And then I've got plans for like the thumbnail and stuff, like lots of technical things that I would like to do with this show. I want to keep the thumbnails consistent for branding purposes. Like, you want to make sure if you see a certain type of thumbnail, you're like, oh yeah, that's Garrett's podcast, right? Love to hear about your processes in depth, how you continue pushing on with the posting consistency, dude. That's an episode, a whole episode in itself. So let's see, you said post it on Sundays. Yes. So the plan is, let me finish addressing Brent, and then I'll get you next. But that is a great idea. I'm actually gonna write that down, or it'll be in this chat, so I'll be able to go back and find it. But my process is in depth. I will definitely do an episode of just literally like start to finish my day, how I do everything. Maybe not super how, but like how, if that makes sense. Like it'll be a very in-depth process of discussion. But that'll be good. I like that idea, Brent. The podcasts are going to be posted on Sundays. So originally, I've talked about this a little, but not enough for anybody to remember. But my schedule that I do right this minute is I do my shorts on Sunday. Sunday is our shorts day. So I make all my shorts for the week. make all my shorts for the week on Sundays. Do them all. Batch make shorts for the week on Sundays. With that, I also have time on Sundays to do the podcast. So my plan is I'm evolving that Sunday just a little bit. What's going to happen is that on Sundays, probably that's how I'm doing it this week, but it may change depending on what I got going on. And I also don't have a set time for it yet, but I know it'll be Sundays. Sunday is going to be the day for it. But I'm going to do the podcast first. I'm going to stream the podcast here on YouTube. Again, hey guys. I'm going to stream it first, and then immediately after the stream is over, I'm going to cut it down to where I need it, put it on Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And then after that, I'm going to take it, make all the shorts for the podcast and for the vlogs. I'm going to do all of the shorts all at once. And then throughout the week when I schedule these shorts to come out, I'm going to do, I usually do I don't know if you noticed, but I do them in order of when the videos themselves came out, usually. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the video, so the shorts that I do based on the vlogs that I make during the week, those actually are going to still come out in order. So, for example, Monday's short will be about Thursday's vlog. And then I'm going to alternate. So I'm going to do a regular short, then a podcast short, then a regular short, then a podcast short, if I have enough podcast shorts. So I'm gonna that way, you don't have Sunday for the podcast to come out, and then you have to wait a week for the shorts. So I want it to come out relatively close to when the podcast actually drops. That way, it's still kind of relevant to, like, if I talk about something more current or refer to something more current, if a lot of people come and see the short and then go to the podcast, they can sort of still understand what goes down. And also, I just personally feel like I want the shorts, for some reason, it's just a feel. I want the shorts to be relatively close to the podcast. So it may be one of those things, too, where I post a podcast on Sundays, then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday shorts are about the podcast. They're completely podcast shorts, and the vlog shorts don't start until the next Thursday. I don't know. That's something that over a few weeks of doing it, I'll get more of a consistent feel of where everything else will go. Idea for an episode, have me and Brent there live. Dude, that'd be dope. Specifically about the gaming channel, maybe? An episode about the gaming channel, you mean? That, I don't think I wrote that one down, but that's something I thought about, talking about the rise and fall of the gaming channel. People are doing podcast shorts. Yeah, exactly, dude. That's one of the things. Well, there's a couple of the double-edged sword why I'm doing the shorts for this podcast, because again, it's a super popular thing. You have your podcast, you break it down. It's really just a good strategy for content, because you have an hour-long piece of content that you cut down to 2 10-minute videos or 5-minute videos or whatever, and then you cut that down to like 5 or 6 short-form videos. It's just a good content strategy, because really you record one thing, then you have a week's worth of content out of that one thing. Episode about gaming channel featuring your most loyal viewers. Ha, yeah, dude. That's why I said you guys are. I said you guys are at the chat, so it's cool. But the shorts, like I said, double-edged sword. I do that for because it's something that's relevant. People are into. People like to listen to snippets of podcasts, and also it's gonna just be because some weeks. Okay, so I make 4 vlogs, right? And I typically I have at least 4 shorts every week. I have one about each vlog. Sometimes I'll do different ones. I make original ideas or whatever. And sometimes I just don't have any ideas. So if that's the case, I can rely on the shorts from the podcast to help me get to my week of shorts, or even make it to where I get even further ahead on the shorts. That way I can be consistently confident that I'm ahead on the game. So I want to make sure I've always got my shorts. And I've been good. I've been doing shorts daily since January. That's crazy. It's been that long. So having a podcast, being able to cut down the podcast, is going to help a lot in the shorts game. Because, like I said, and really this is going to help too, because I said I have 4 videos a week that I make shorts about. So that's really only 4 shorts a week that I can guarantee. But with this podcast, I can easily add 3 more, and then boom, I've got 7 shorts. So I can have my everyday shorts still and then have my week ahead, and then we're good. So this I think is going to be really helpful for that as well. And then maybe, just maybe, if it's something good enough, I could do a separate, I don't know. See, I've thought about making a whole separate channel for the podcast, but that just doesn't feel right to me. For this podcast, I think random topics each week would be fun. Talk about your interests and new developments, etc. I think that is a good vibe. I like that vibe because it's, again, like at the current state of the podcast, the description says that it's a daily vlog of a podcast. It's just sort of like it's a daily vlog of a podcast. If you think about daily vlog, this is the podcast equivalent of that right now. But so that would make it really on brand. It would be interesting to do it that way. Random topics each week, my interests, new developments. And one of the episodes I have down is actually talking about this book, because this week of vlogs the intention was to make each episode of the vlog about the book somehow, some way. That way I don't know, I wanted to kind of experiment with like a series sort of vibe. So each episode that week was about the book. If you guys didn't notice, that was 100% intentional. I don't know if you hadn't noticed that or caught on to that, but that was 100% intentional. Every video was about the notebook this week, but that was on purpose. But I want to do a podcast episode about it further down the line. Maybe not so soon, but I want to get a couple of more weeks under my belt of using the notebook, and then I'll make a podcast about it, talking more about the longer, I wouldn't even say long term, but longer term effects and things that have gone well, that have gone poorly, etc. with using it. Gordon, talk about your editing and how you do edits and stuff, I think would be a cool insight on a podcast, as well as not a lot of people know where to start with that sort of thing. That's facts. That's a good idea. And actually, I follow a podcast. Called The Editing Podcast. It's Hayden Hillier-Smith and then another guy. 2 professional YouTube editors, essentially. And they go all in depth. They have guests. They talk about editing. And it's really, really insightful. And they do a lot of talking about editing. And they're like, I'm here. They're like, way better than me. But I learned a lot from them, too. Because I still listen every now and again. But I did catch that. It's like, he must really love that notebook. Yeah, but it was all for a reason. And it was its own little story. Because like those videos of yours do pretty decently, I think. Yeah, I think people enjoy them. Like I said, I referred to it in the vlog the other day. I personally love doing the editing streams where I'll just edit one of my vlogs live on stream. Problem is, people, if you're not either always here on the stream and you're just here to be here, like Chloe, Brent, etc. Like if you're not like a loyal stream viewer, you either have to be really into me or really, really into editing. And it's just, it's fun for me to do, but also I wanted to do a podcast. And since I'm bringing the podcast back and YouTube has their new podcast feature, it's going to be really good to just do the podcast, I think. Use one podcast a month talking about updates on the idea and uses of the notebook. Okay, and it could be a good idea. I think once I get further along in with the notebook, it's not going to be a thing where I can report anything new every month until I get like a year in or whatever, and I just have I have like 5 of these things full of stuff, and then I can be like, okay, a year ago, I did this, and I felt this way, but now, a year later, this is how I do my daily routine is with this. My phone is a non-factor until 11 in the morning or whatever. So once I get more long-term effects, I think it'll be better to talk about just in general, because I pretty much hit the gist of it with the vlogs. I think this week it was a lot about the first few days. Are you dating each notebook entry? If not, you should. I should. That's a good idea. I actually dated a couple of them. Let me go back. The beginning, I didn't date my first one. I did enter, let's see. Okay, 316. Yeah, that is, I dated that one. 317, I dated that one. When I referred to, on 317, which was 2 days ago, I wrote, got out of bed well today, less phone scrolling. That was on the 17th. I dated that one, I don't know why I did it specifically, but I just dated it anyway. And then I wrote more that day. And then the rest, I think, was actually from the 17th. The 17th was a big day for writing in the notebook.
But I haven't done consistent dating of my entries, but I probably should. That's a good idea. I definitely need to. Also, make sure we're drinking water, gang. Always keep the water in your system. Okay. The notebook thing becoming popular is funny to me, as it's literally a diary, and I remember when those were made fun of and lost popularity. Nice to see the resurgence of those. I agree. I remember whenever I was a little kid, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid was big, and it was like super popular. I had my own diary, journal, whatever you want to call it. Drink that water bottle right now. No balls. The whole thing. I gotta continue to talk, or else I'm gonna lose views. No, but whenever Diary of a Wimpy Kid was really big, I was in like elementary school, intermediate school, like second through probably fourth grade is when I did it big. But I had a notebook and I wrote in it and I drew pictures in it all the time, every single day, and that was funny because I think back on that nowadays, and it really felt like a daily vlog. And like when I write things in here, or when I wrote my little thing a while back, it felt the same. And it was really cool talking about my day and talking about what I did at school that day and illustrating that. It felt really daily vloggy, and it was so sick. So sick. But I think back on it now, and I'm like, man, imagine if I'd have had this, but back in 2011 or 2010. That would have been so cool if I'd have had the access or the resources for daily content, videos. Because, I mean, YouTube was popping back then, 2010, 2011. I mean, I'm sure there was plenty of daily vloggers then, but imagine a second grade daily vlogs were 100%. That's what I'm saying, dude. That I think about that all the time. Like, if ever I think back on the Diary of a Wimpy Kid era and me writing in my journal and stuff, that was so a daily vlog. Whether I realized it then or not, which I didn't, but that was such a daily vlog, and it was great. And I think that's why I gravitated towards this space for career and hobbies in general, is that's something that I did. Like, I had a couple of friends that did that sort of thing too, but they never stuck with it. But I stuck with it hard for a while. And I'm just the type of person to stick with stuff anyway. But also that, I just felt like it was really, really sticky. And I did it. I really enjoyed doing that. And I always had it on me. And I always wrote in it or drew in it or whatever. I mean, granted, it was essentially a carbon copy of Diary of a Wimpy Kid there for a while. But once I did it long enough, I kind of got more original and did sort of my own style of writing and drawing and that kind of stuff. When we had to do journal entries in school, I loved doing it. It's so much fun. 2011 through 2015, YouTube was a place for sure, dude. I remember back in the old day when YouTube was very taboo. Reading it back is so funny. Oh my gosh, dude. I could only imagine. I read it back one time, a long time ago, whenever I had it. My grammar was awful. My spelling was awful. All that was awful. But again, I was like 8, so who cares? But I remember a long time ago thinking that YouTube was it was the same kind of vibe when you thought about an adult, like Adult Swim or Nick at Night, like whenever you were really young and thought of that as like a really taboo source of media. That's kind of how I saw YouTube a long time ago. Chloe, I don't know if you can relate, but like back when we were younger, that's how YouTube felt. YouTube felt very, better not go on there, because it's probably bad. Which there's definitely a lot of bad stuff on there, but I would say the majority of it wasn't actually bad. We just didn't know. We were just trying to be protected, which is totally valid. But, dude, either way, super psyched to see. I want to know, I'm curious, because once we get a little further in and do a little bit more topic-based, because this is, again, so taboo, mostly because we never really had great internet access. That's true. Never really had the great internet access, which that's whatever. It's one of those things. But I'm excited to get past the intro Q&A sort of phase. I'm ready for the next couple weeks of episodes. I'm getting into the nitty-gritty of certain topics because I'm excited to hear your guys' feedback, because I know one of the reasons I did this on live stream too is because I know a lot of the streams we do over on the live stream channel, or even just here for editing or whatever, sometimes we get into topics and we just get deep and we just nail it down, and I'm like, dude, this would be phenomenal for a podcast. So I'm hoping that we can organically generate some of those conversations down the line in future episodes. Spent my time watching Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, so my content consumption wasn't very taboo. That's cool. Got to do laundry, so I'll hop off for a bit. Nice to have been there for part of your live. I normally miss these. Excited to see a new podcast, though. Thanks, Gordon. I appreciate you. Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out. We're probably almost done, just because it's going to be the first one, again, maybe an hour at most, but it's not going to be super long, so you're good. Thanks for hanging out for a little bit, though. I appreciate you. Good to see you. And if you want to catch the last couple minutes, you can always refer back to the podcast on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. But I've hit all the points that I wanted to. I wrote down a little list here of what I wanted to talk about on the show. But this is for all the people that either don't know or haven't seen the podcast on other platforms. This is the GareTheBear show. We're talking about it. I think I'm gonna buy into the daily vlog. Make a great warm up for the audience for sure. That's good. I'm glad it kind of is being. It seems like it'll be received well. But I think I'm gonna buy into the daily vlog, but podcast, the podcast equivalent of daily vlog. That could be cool. I think that could be interesting. And I'm gonna brand it slightly differently. So if you'll see compared on Spotify, it'll actually be season 2 of the podcast for those because I have it listed as seasons. This has fun potential on the live channel. We literally do this just with Minecraft in the back. Yeah, for real. So I don't know. We'll just see what happens. I'm excited to see it. Good potential. That's all I'm after. I just want it to feel like it's got somewhere to go. And this is literally just fun Sunday. Sit down for an hour or so. Because I don't want these to be super long either. Like an hour and a half at most. Because I think honestly, half an hour for a podcast is probably golden length. I don't know about you guys. I believe that a podcast is, like, most podcasts I listen to, I either stop listening after about a half an hour or only listen to it if it's a half an hour or less. I don't know. The way podcasts are evolving, it's interesting to me, but I think that's probably going to do it for today, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Everybody that was in the chat today on the live stream, I use them for background. Background is cool, yeah. That's what I've heard a lot, too. So for background, it's nice to have it long. But anyway, yeah, no, this is going to be it for the first episode of the GareTheBear show here on YouTube or on Spotify or wherever else you get your podcast. Bye-bye, gamers. Yeah, thanks, guys, so much for hanging out. I really appreciate you. But this is going to do it for the live stream. So thanks again for popping in, guys. And see you next week.